Hello, this is Skylar Mitchell. I'm going to be talking about my projects that I've done in EDAC 634, the course about adult learning, and hopefully you can find something beneficial from this project review as well as I can. So an outline of what I'll talk about during this video is listed here. You can look at that and follow along with me. First, we're going to talk about the overview of my projects. So there were 4 different projects that we did, and each of those had a focus for itself and the learning theory that we were talking about during that unit. So the first one being andragogy, talking about the adult as a learner and what characterized adult learning. Secondly is experiential learning. We talk about how learning is an experience which we then take and put into action. And transformative learning is focused on how you transform your viewpoint in terms of your learning and reassess different information. And then lastly, embodied learning is where you're using your body in your learning process. So there are 5 different things that I did for each project, and these are the steps in which I planned each project. First, I would read the topics and research the learning theories. Secondly, I would decide specifically which learning theory and framework to build the activities around for the adult participant. Thirdly, I would determine a theoretical scenario in which the adult learning would take place. Next, I would build the activities around the specified goal of the professional or academic learning, and I would sequence the project with emphasis on the chosen learning theory. And then lastly, I would provide an in-depth description of how the activities were designed around specific learning theory or the theories. So here are the project highlights I have. I'm going to go through each different project that we did and just highlight the most important things that I felt were beneficial to share. So firstly, project concept. The concept behind this one was that this was a design workshop that was meant to improve participants' design thinking skills. And so this tied to andragogy because the participants were involved learners, and in terms of adult learning, it helped them to be more self-directed and move towards that through self-directed group projects. And so here are the 3 core concepts of andragogy that were focused on in this project. First off, experience is a key part in adult learning. We all know that adults have prior experience that they come with, and so the workshop used this concept and asked the subjects of the activity to look at different designs and decide whether or not those were good designs. And so that is playing on their experience and using it as a source of learning. Next was readiness to learn. So this workshop draws from participants' desire to be good designers and spark internal motivation and engages them through practical tasks. And then lastly is application oriented. So adults as learners are very important to them to know how their learning is going to be applied. And so this was particularly drawn out through the idea that this is a workshop designed for those that are going to be designing things, and so they should have an increased buy-in because it's going to apply to them in their lives. Next was experiential learning, and this project was the concept I had for it was intended for IT personnel. which the goal was to fully train them to prepare a computer for new employees. And so this centered around Kolb's learning theory, where participants would be guided through 4 stages of this cycle, which is illustrated to the left. And so these 4 are listed out here to the right. You start with concrete experience. So this is the participants trying their hand at setting up the computer. Next, it went to reflective observation, which is where they would take a step back to review and reflect how that went. And then next, it would be abstract conceptualization, where participants would analyze the process that they've been doing and generalize their new knowledge and see how it recontextualizes and aligns with their previous knowledge. And then lastly, active experimentation is where learners put what they have learned into practice. So they would take everything that they've done so far and see if they can actually set up this computer. Next was transformational learning. So this project concept was a cybersecurity remediation course, which is aimed towards transforming participants' perspective and habits towards trying to get them to have safer cybersecurity practices. And so this program was designed around Maslow's psychocritical approach, which focused on these 4 different fundamental steps that the learner goes through. First, they experience what's called a disorienting dilemma, which generally is so shocking that it calls their previously held assumptions. So this would be the case where, let's say the IT person gets or just the employee gets a email saying they fell for the fake cybersecurity test, and so they're going to have to call this into critical reflection and say, okay, I messed up, and so let me reflect on and assess what preconceived notions that I had that led me to mess up and to have weak cybersecurity. And then they're going to go through reflective discourse, and so this is where I had them discuss the possible ways they could avoid this in the future and apply these different ways of correcting their action. And then lastly, putting that into action is the ultimate step, and where they are able to reintegrate into normal day-by-day activity with better cybersecurity. Lastly was the embodied learning project. This is the project was a masterclass designed to equip participants with basic drumming techniques so that they learn to read and understand rhythmic notation proficiently. And so the idea was, by drumming, this is an embodied way of learning something. And so this class is intended for musicians, not necessarily drummers, but by using the drumming, they're including their mind, body, and spirit into this meaning making or learning of the rhythmic notation. And so Amon's 4 dimensions of somatic learning was what I utilized during this. So we can go through those. We got kinesthetic, which focused on the movement of the body. So that was where you're drumming the rhythm. Next was sensory, which is using senses. And so that would be the precision and the feeling of the sound that the person has. Affective is how the emotions played a role in that learning. And so that would be maybe the emotion they feel in the music. And then lastly, spiritual learning is what meaning making is there in this case music. And so how do we reflect on the meaning rhythm gives to our music? Here are the apps and the tools that I used. I used Microsoft Word, presentations and online resources, online images, and peers' previous examples. And here are the resources that I used. Thank you for following along, and I hope you gained something from this.